With Thunder Dragon 2, Arcade Archives are once again doing what they do best by bringing us a previously arcade-only game to enjoy on modern consoles. Now, arcade games that never saw a home release before usually fall into one of two camps. They're either games that when you play them you can kinda see why they never got a home release, or they're games like Armed Police Batrider where the lack of a home port seems like a tragic oversight that sorely needs correcting. Thunder Dragon 2 falls squarely into the latter category. This 1993 vert from NMK, while lacking that bit of spit and polish to make it stand out in terms of presentation, makes up for this by being a relentlessly fun and thrilling experience from first stage to last, and at times put me in mind of Eschatos in the way it just throws reams of enemies head first down the screen for you to take out in a blaze of cathartic glory, before mere seconds later doing the exact same thing again, but now faster and with twice as much of everything. In terms of basic mechanics, the game is simpler even than the original Thunder Dragon, with no weapon options to change through. You use one button to fire your forward shot and another to bomb, and in terms of player input there is literally nothing else. Your forward shot can be upgraded through 4 levels, and very generously taking a hit only drops your power level by 1. You can also pick up missile upgrades which fire simultaneously with your forward shot. Bombs are both powerful and plentiful, allowing you to use them not just as last-ditch saves, but at strategic points throughout each stage. There is no ship select, but in the arcade, player 2 was given a different ship, and there is a nice option in the menu here that allows you to use that ship even if playing single player. The player 1 ship has a wider shot, its missile upgrades fire straight ahead, and its bomb unleashes in a kind of carpet bomb effect. The player 2 ship is faster and has a narrower shot, but its missiles home in on enemies and its bomb erupts in a kind of circular mushroom cloud fashion. As mentioned, enemy ships come very thick and very fast in an almost unrelenting fashion. I use my Switch itself to capture clips for these videos, and this is probably the hardest game I have had to do in that time, as even the brief second needed to hold the capture button is rarely granted to you outside of stage transitions. There's also a really well worked flow to the enemy formations, with quick waves of a half dozen or so crafts scooting in to be taken out in a second or two and make you feel super powerful, followed quickly by medium and bigger ships, many unloading destructible missiles or later even launching smaller enemies from their own decks to give you a different test, before more popcorn enemies come zipping in again, often overlapping with the larger craft and giving the game that kind of Eschatos-ish energy. This energetic feeling, by the way, is also added to in a slightly strange sense with the voice that shouts out encouragement when you do well or threatens revenge when you get hit. There's just something very old school arcade about it, and it is hard not to smile, even if it can get a bit repetitive. For large parts of the first couple of stages, there aren't actually that many bullets to dodge, but that barely matters because there are so many ships buzzing about, you're constantly engaged anyway, with some sections reminding me of the bonus stages in Aero Fighters 2, such as the sheer number of ships flocking towards you at once. And we haven't even got to the best part of the game yet, which is its scoring. Basically, the scoring is not complicated, but there are just scoring opportunities everywhere. The most famous way, and what I kind of think of as Thunder Dragon 2's trademark, is in taking out the letters spelling out the stage info at the start of each stage. This, by the way, is easier said than done, but if you are struggling to get it consistently, a bomb is always an option, since other than points, in most stages a bomb pickup is generated by clearing all letters, meaning no net loss to your stock anyway. Another way to score is of course by taking out enemies, with each one being worth X amount of points. However, speed killing enemies quickly enough and taking out whole waves can lead to more enemies being spawned, more enemies leading of course to even more points. There are also several different types of points medals to be collected, and these can be left behind by enemies or hidden behind a myriad of spots in the background. Small purple medals are worth a few hundred points and not hugely important in isolation. Medium-sized purple medals, however, start off at a low value, but chaining them quickly brings them up to higher values, and they max out at 10,000 points a pop, a game-changing value if you can keep them there. Fortunately, your chain is only broken by dying and not by missing any. Then we also have the largest purple medal, which is worth 50,000 points. but can only be generated in a few select ways, such as defeating certain larger enemies or taking out every single enemy in a difficult to survive wave, and some of those enemies, the larger enemies, are only generated by fulfilling certain conditions earlier in the stage. Finding out exactly how to generate these big medals is a big part of the game's appeal, and getting good enough to spawn them consistently ought to offer those who really want a game to dive deep into a lot to chew on. There's also one other type of medal, a small blue one, whose points value, while nice enough, is less significant than the fact that for every 3 you collect you generate an extra bomb pickup. Bombs also drop from certain other enemies, and you should really learn to make good use of them because as generous as the game is with bombs, it is very stingy with extends, to the extent that, to the best of my knowledge, there are none to be gained at all. Fortunately, Thunder Dragon 2, at least in its first half, isn't too unforgiving in terms of difficulty, and I feel it judges things well here. The later stages are indeed hellish, and will no doubt remain forever quite beyond me, but the first few can become quite manageable with practice, and the scoring opportunities keep replaying them feeling fresh and exciting every single time. Coupled with the non-stop onrush of enemies, this is a game that is just super fun to play, and in terms of pure gameplay, it absolutely nails that simple to get into, but with a ton of hidden depth approach that basically almost every shmup should be going for. Where it is lacking a bit, however, is presentation. Visually, things don't look bad at all, and there are a lot of nice and varied enemy designs, scrolling effects, and even occasional background animations, most notably the breaching whales in Stage 4, but there's just not a whole lot of character to proceedings. The music too is, again, while not bad at all, a little bit repetitive, with not a huge amount of variation as you progress through the stages. These are minor things, but there is one visual issue that may cause a little bit more frustration, and that is the flickering bullet sprites. These can be difficult to track, especially when coming in from many sources, and there are a few enemies and bosses who shoot out fiery projectiles that have a similarly unclear aspect to them, especially as they can be hard to differentiate from explosions. What I will say though is this becomes less of an issue the more you play, and the more you get used to not just the formations themselves, but the bullet appearances, and it's certainly not enough to prevent the game from being a hell of a lot of fun. In terms of extras, I think we are probably all used to the Arcade Archives formula by now. We have the original game with options to rotate and resize the screen, and you can adjust the controls and auto-fire options. There's also a difficulty select, which I'm not sure is in all ACA games, or if it is, I haven't noticed it till now. There are online scoreboards too, but the main board isn't the best since all scores are grouped together here, regardless of difficulty chosen. Fortunately, there is a dedicated high score mode, which presents a level playing field, although as with other ACA titles, you can't rotate the screen in this mode, meaning the perfect setup is just tantalisingly out of reach. Finally, we have the Caravan Mode, and like in the ACA release of the first Thunder Dragon, you can choose to start your 5 minutes either at the start of Stage 1 or Stage 7, with each having their own separate online scoreboard. So all in all, we have a fast, frenetic, classic shmup that brings together both a sense of energy and dynamism and marries it with a wealth of scoring opportunities and well-judged difficulty escalation, while still managing to retain a pick-up-and-play feel and a refreshing level of replayability. These plus points far outweigh the smaller negatives of a slightly drab presentation and some visibility issues, and I would give it an 8.5 out of 10, and personally I think it is probably the best ACA release since Blazing Star, and one I would highly recommend checking out. Let us know your thoughts if you do so, and thanks as ever for watching. See you next time. Cheers.